The day of Grandfather Michael's will reading wasn't supposed to be like this. I stood in the corner of his grand study, watching my stepsister Olivia parade around as if she already owned everything. In a way, she did. The preliminary will had left her nearly everything, while I got nothing but a small box of old photographs. It's only right, Olivia smirked, adjusting her designer blazer. After all, I'm the one who visited him every weekend, who helped with his business meetings, who was there at every family dinner. What she didn't mention was how she had systematically worked to keep me away from Grandfather Michael for the past 5 years, the mysterious schedule conflicts whenever I tried to visit, the private family dinners I wasn't invited to, the lost messages that never reached me. Emma, my father called from across the room, standing awkwardly beside my stepmother, Sophia. Come sit down. Mr. Jackson is about to begin. Mr. Jackson, the family lawyer, looked uncomfortable as he shuffled his papers. I had known him since childhood, he had been grandfather's friend as much as his lawyer. Today, however, he wouldn't meet my eyes. As per the most recent will, dated 3 months ago, Mr. Jackson began, the estate of Michael Carter Sr., including Carter Industries and all associated properties, will pass to Olivia Parker Carter. The summer house in Cape Cod goes to Sophia Carter. And to Emma Carter, he paused, glancing at me apologetically. A collection of family photographs and personal effects. Olivia's triumphant laugh cut through the room. Finally. What a real daughter deserves. I felt my face burn. 5 years of manipulation had paid off for her. 5 years since my stepmother, Sophia, had married my father and brought Olivia into our lives. 5 years of watching her slowly take everything that had once been mine, first my father's attention, then my place in the family, and now my inheritance. There is one additional matter, Mr. Jackson added. His voice was strange. Mr. Carter left specific instructions about his personal safe. Olivia waved dismissively. I already have the combination. Grandfather gave it to me months ago. Actually, Mr. Jackson said, there's a second safe. Behind the portrait of his late wife. The room fell silent. I looked at the painting of my grandmother, Grace, the grandmother I had never met but had heard so many stories about. The portrait had hung in grandfather's study for decades. That's impossible, Olivia snapped. I've been in this room hundreds of times. There's no safe there. Mr. Jackson walked to the portrait and carefully lifted it from the wall. Behind it was a sleek digital safe I had never seen before. The combination, he said clearly, is Emma's birthday. My heart stopped. Olivia's face turned red. What? No. There must be some mistake. Grandfather would never. Mr. Jackson entered the numbers, November 24, 1995. The safe clicked open. Inside was a single USB drive and an envelope with my name written in grandfather's distinctive handwriting. What is that? Sophia demanded, stepping forward. Whatever it is, it belongs to Olivia now. The will clearly states. The will, Mr. Jackson interrupted, doesn't cover items in this safe. These were left under separate instruction. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and began to read. My dearest Emma. If you're reading this, then everything has happened as I feared it might. The changes to my will, my apparent distance from you, it was all part of a plan. You see, 5 years ago, I discovered something disturbing about Olivia and Sophia's past, something that made me realize they were not who they claimed to be. But I couldn't confront them directly. I needed proof. So I played along with their game, watching as they manipulated their way into our family's heart. And while they thought they were winning, I was gathering evidence. The USB drive contains everything, the fraudulent documents, the recorded conversations, the money trails. But most importantly, it contains my true will, digitally signed and legally binding, dated just 1 week ago. Olivia is not who she claims to be, Emma. She's not even Sophia's real daughter. Keep reading, my dear granddaughter. The truth changes everything. I looked up from the letter to find the room in chaos. Olivia was screaming at Mr. Jackson, demanding he open the safe again. Sophia was on her phone, frantically whispering to someone. And my father was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Mr. Jackson, I said quietly, holding up the USB drive. I believe we need to see what's on this. The real story was just beginning. For the first time in 5 years, I felt my grandfather's presence beside me, guiding me toward the truth. Olivia's perfectly crafted world was about to shatter, and I had front row seats to watch it fall. Mr. Jackson connected the USB drive to grandfather's computer, and the large screen on the wall flickered to life. Olivia lunged forward. This is ridiculous. I demand we stop this right now. Sit down, Olivia, Mr. Jackson said firmly. Or I'll have security escort you out. The first file that opened was a birth certificate, Olivia's birth certificate. But it wasn't the one she had shown the family. This one had a different mother's name, a different date, and a different place of birth. What is this? My father whispered. Keep watching, I said, clutching grandfather's letter in my hand. The next document was a series of emails between Sophia and someone named Hannah Parker. My heart stopped as I read them. The plan is working perfectly. Michael believes you're my daughter. Once we get the inheritance, we'll split it 70-30 as agreed. The real Olivia will never know her identity was stolen. Sophia's face went pale. Those emails are fake. Actually, Mr. Jackson interrupted, they're not. Your entire plot is documented here, how you found out about the real Olivia Chin, who was given up for adoption at birth, how you obtained her birth records, and how you crafted this entire deception. More files appeared, bank statements showing regular payments to someone named Hannah Parker, medical records that had been altered, and finally, a video. Grandfather's face filled the screen, the date marked just 2 weeks ago. Emma, if you're watching this, then everything has come to light. 5 years ago, I received an anonymous letter warning me about Sophia and her supposed daughter. At first, I didn't believe it, but something felt wrong, the way they pushed you out, the way they tried to isolate me from you. So, I hired investigators. What they uncovered was shocking. The video continued with grandfather explaining how he had played along, gathering evidence while waiting for the right moment. He had known he was sick, had known his time was running out, but he made sure the truth would come out. The woman claiming to be Olivia, he said, is an actress named Stella Hayes. Sophia hired her to play the role of her daughter. The real Olivia Parker lives in Seattle, never knowing her identity was stolen. Olivia, or rather, Stella, jumped up. You can't prove any of this. Actually, Mr. Jackson said, we can. The police are already involved. They're waiting outside. As if on cue, 2 detectives entered the study. Sophia burst into tears, while Stella tried to run but was quickly stopped. And now, Mr. Jackson said, opening another file, the real will. Everything had been left to me, the company, the properties, everything. But there was a condition, I had to find the real Olivia Chin and make things right. The next hour was a blur of police statements and legal documents. I watched as Sophia and Stella were led away in handcuffs, my father standing beside me, looking shocked. I'm so sorry, Emma, he kept saying. I had no idea. Later that evening, alone in grandfather's study, my study now, I found one last letter in the safe along with a small key. My dearest Emma. By now, you know the truth. But there's one last thing. The key enclosed opens a deposit box at First National. Inside, you'll find everything you need to locate the real Olivia Chin. She deserves to know her true identity, and you, my brave granddaughter, deserve to have a real sister. I'm sorry I had to put you through this deception. Watching you suffer while I gathered evidence was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I knew you were strong enough to endure it. You're a Carter, after all. Remember, success isn't just about wealth or power. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. All my love. Grandfather. 1 week later, I stood outside a small coffee shop in Seattle, watching a young woman who had my grandfather's eyes and my grandmother's smile. The real Olivia Parker was a kindergarten teacher who had been adopted at birth, never knowing her true heritage. Miss Parker. I said, approaching her table. I'm Emma Carter, and I have quite a story to tell you. She looked up, curious. Carter. Why does that name sound familiar? I sat down, placing grandfather's photo album between us. Because it's your name too. And I think it's time you learned about your real family. As I opened the album to show her our grandfather's face, I smiled, knowing he was watching over both of us. Sophia and Stella were facing fraud charges, my father was in therapy dealing with his guilt, and me, I was finally where I belonged. Running the company grandfather had built and gaining something I never expected, a real sister. Sometimes, justice comes in unexpected ways. Sometimes, the truth takes time to emerge. And sometimes, just sometimes, a grandfather's love can reach beyond the grave to make everything right again. As Olivia and I talked late into the evening, sharing stories and discovering our shared connection, I realized that this wasn't just about an inheritance anymore. It was about family, real family. And grandfather, in his wisdom, had given me the greatest gift of all, the truth. The company would thrive under my leadership. The real Olivia would learn about her heritage and choose her own path. And somewhere, I knew grandfather was smiling, knowing that his final plan had worked perfectly. Justice had been served, not with violence or revenge, but with truth and love. And in the end, that was worth more than any inheritance could ever be.